During his first year in office, former President Donald Trump banned most transgender Americans from joining the U.S. military. Shortly after his inauguration, Joe Biden reversed the policy prohibiting discrimination against transgender troops who simply want to serve their country. Well, on that very same day, Lieutenant Colonel Bree Fram came out publicly as transgender while in a command position. She's now one of the highest-ranking openly transgender officers in the U.S. military and in the Department of Defense as an astronautical engineer in the U.S. Space Force. She joins us now on Perspective. Lieutenant Colonel Fram, thank you so much for coming on the show today.
Oh, it's my pleasure to be here. Thank you for having me.
So between 2019 and 2021, if I understand correctly, you actually served through Donald Trump's transgender military ban, which itself was a reversal of the Obama administration's policy. Can you tell our viewers a little bit about what that was like?
Yeah, I've served now 19 years in the military and seen quite the roller coaster of policy changes from the first time service was opened in 2016 through the years where we had a ban on transgender service again, where we had basically taken a step to reinstitutionalize discrimination. And that was a definite challenge to serve through that time. But I'm so thankful for the people around me, the people I've had the honor to lead, and the people I've worked for, all having so much support for me and for other transgender troops.
And Lieutenant Colonel, do you think that being able to serve openly, do you see any changes in the mindsets of your colleagues?
I think there have been huge changes in the minds of the military over the past 6 or 7 years with regards to transgender service. And in an ironic way, I look back at the actions that President Trump took and I say, thank you, because when he tweeted that transgender people were a burden on the military, about 50% of the American public and 50% of members of the military thought that transgender people should be able to serve. But what he did was shine a spotlight on our service, and all of a sudden, transgender people were everywhere in the media around the world doing their jobs, and that got out and it made a difference. A few weeks after he tweeted, popular opinion and in the military was up to 70% in support. Several years later, by the time the ban formally went into place in 2019, support was in the high 80% range.
Okay, so you are also the co-editor of the book With Honor and Integrity, Transgender Troops in Their Own Words from NYU Press, released November of last year. It offers 26 accounts of transgender service members who are currently serving. And I'm wondering, I imagine that lifting the ban didn't remove all of the barriers that transgender service members face in the military. Are there any challenges? And if so, what major challenges remain?
Yeah, there are certainly still challenges to people serving openly and authentically. And a lot of that is changing. It's changing for the better because now that we actually have a chance to work with the policy that we have, to make improvements on it, make sure we're reducing administrative burden on both transgender troops and their commanders, we can make a difference. Because what we're really doing by enabling people to serve authentically is unlocking potential. And what any modern military needs now is brain power. And if people have to spend mental energy protecting their identity, that's energy they can't use to pursue the mission that they're given. So we need to bring in and retain the best and brightest who are capable of serving. And by putting effort into creating policy that works and works better now that we have a chance to do it, we can truly drive that 21st century military that we need to succeed.
Do you think that, I don't know how much you can speak to this, but since you have served abroad before, how do you think U.S. policies on transgender service members compares to other major world armies? I'm thinking here in France, for example, it would be probably, I don't think there's any conversations at all about the LGBTQ plus community serving in the military. So how do you think the U.S. compares?
The U.S., when it first put in open transgender service, was one of approximately 17 or 18 countries that had transgender service. And what we've seen through our allies, through all those partners that have had trans service, and the experiences we've had in the United States, is that transgender people serving add to the diversity, the complexity, and the capabilities of a military, because any nation that limits who it can choose from when they're otherwise capable of serving is making that choice to be less than it otherwise could be. If there are skills and capabilities out there, and there happen to be in a transgender body, I want that kind of person serving next to me if they want to serve.
And you, I want to change gears now because you're also an active duty astronautical engineer in the U.S. Space Force. You've got your uniform on. It's the Space Service branch of the U.S. Armed Forces. For those of our viewers who aren't familiar with it, what exactly does the Space Force do? What are its priorities?
Well, the Space Force was formed to defend basically our modern way of life. We understand that the United States and so many advanced nations around the world basically can't go a day without space. And the United States and others rely on our space assets. The Space Force is there to not only design, build, and operate those critical assets like the Global Positioning System, military communications, and so many others, but also to defend them and to be there in case conflict ever does extend into space. And we're there to have those space-minded individuals who can really think about the ways that we are going to defend our assets and be able to keep our modern way of life safe.
Okay, Lieutenant Colonel Bree Fram, I'm so sorry. That's unfortunately all we have time for today. But thank you so much for coming on Perspective.
Thank you for having me.
Well, it's nearly